Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vital MX post-race show. The 13th round of 2025 Monster Energy AMA Supercross is in the rearview mirror, and we still have a title fight on our hands. We're still on a knife's edge, but it is far from over, and if anything, Philadelphia gave the 450SX fight a little injection of excitement, maybe a little bit of a boost. Again, knife's edge, but it's far from over. And what more can we ask for? And what more could you ask for from our wide array of sponsors who just offer the most exceptional products in their respective categories? I'm of course talking about Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Motorex, and Fox Racing. Thank you to all of those people for their support of this podcast, and we will of course get to them here shortly, so you'll hear a little bit more. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per usual, joined by Michael Lindsay. Hello, how are you?
Hello. Pretty good. Just we jumped on the pod, just got back from riding. It's been a good weekend. Got to stay at home, watch as a full fan, and actually got to even watch race day live from start to finish, which I have not done in years. And that was kind of actually, honestly, one of my biggest takeaways from the weekend is, surprise, surprise, JB and AC are really good on that thing.
Yeah, you would expect them to be, well, maybe not now, we're 13 rounds in, but it wouldn't be surprising if JB especially had a bit of rust, because the lead role is so foreign to a rider. To be an analyst, I think, comes almost second nature, but to take the lead role is quite daunting. But JB handles it like a pro, arguably better than anyone that's been in that race day live seat. Sorry. So yeah, I give JB and AC all the credit in the world.
Yeah, it's fun to watch because, like, I always talk about, I make comparisons to MotoGP and F1 on this podcast a lot in terms of the sport and just so many general items. One of them is I'm a huge fan of time qualifying in F1 and MotoGP. Yes, it's different because it's a 2-day format and you use that, on the Saturdays to build up. But in particular, those guys are very focused on that in the time sessions, especially in the second one, keeping you really engaged, like where the times are at, where they are overall, who's going on to a hot lap, and, kind of calling out to follow those guys and also breaking down, they both know enough, like, is this lap good enough to get it done? And it actually draws you in, which was, again, not being at the race this weekend, it was very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, and actually I should give them some credit as well. I listened to their new podcast last week, the Foxborough recap, and it was actually surprisingly much better than I expected. So yeah, maybe everyone should check that out as well. But of course, only once you're done with this show here. Now, we're kind of spinning in circles a little bit with this 450 title fight because, yes, Chase Sexton gained ground, but relative to the number of rounds left, we've kind of just stayed where we were post-Foxborough. But crucially, it's not over, and it is still within the realm of possibility that this thing goes down to a barn burner in Salt Lake City. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, that just we don't have to let go of this dream of an intense duel yet, which, as I've covered many times, I'm just not ready to sit on this podcast and say, well, it was fun while it lasted. So yeah, Chase's win was big for the series, for the championship, and all of that good stuff.
It is still weird, though, because the gap comes down even, in this last week, and it came down to the perfect amount of points where, okay, in the next four, if Chase wins out and Cooper to get second, we end up with this tie break. Chase would get it on season wins at that point. But it is interesting because it makes it almost week to week. If Chase keeps winning and like Coop gets second, it's bringing it in tighter. But I said it's almost just like moving it forward another round because it doesn't change quite enough. It sounds so
relatively it's the same because you're knocking points down, but you're knocking opportunities to get points down at equal amounts.
The gap versus what's available kind of sits in that, doesn't sit in the same range, but you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like him winning and Coop getting second just kind of moves the needle, just moves the peg on to the next round. Because like, okay, you bring him down 3 points, but you still have to, it's in that same position the next weekend. Win him second. And I know we talked about this weeks ago. It was kind of the unfathomable that Coop would finish off the podium, which the weekend I mentioned that he somehow did the next round. But in all seriousness, over the next couple, it does just less chances. It just seems less and less likely with those two firing on all cylinders. At the moment, Kenny was third. I would say I think arguably Plessinger is the third best guy. Would you agree with that? Like, he's the only one I feel like who can really meddle with it, because we see where Kenny ends up with the ankle and the shoulder position, and that's just, I don't know. It's going to get a little better every week, but I don't think it's ever going to get better enough that a long run is capable for him with as few rounds as we have left and as little recovery time as we have left.
Yeah, AP is the one I have faith in maybe splitting the two, just because even Philadelphia, he was so good in the heat and in times qualifying and all of that stuff. It was just the first turn crash that kind of curtailed his charge, but otherwise it was another promising event. It is curious to me. I do feel as though the 450 title fight is mental warfare at this point, because on one hand, I cannot fathom the stress that must be on Chase's shoulders, knowing that essentially you're in sudden death, which is probably the best way to put his situation, and that you literally cannot put a foot wrong, otherwise it's game over. So I can't imagine the stress that's on his shoulders. But then equally, I can imagine Coop's in a weird spot, because you've got Chase on the ropes and you can end this thing. And like the desire to end it here and now must also be quite conflicting and hard to manage. And like for instance, Philadelphia was technically not good or bad for Coop's title race, because as we mentioned, relatively speaking, nothing was kind of lost or gained. You could argue that obviously it would have been better for him to win and end this thing, but yeah, I almost want to dive into Coop's mindset with him.
Yeah.
And just figure out what that's like. Because you'd imagine it being a comfortable position, but then I can imagine it being one where you're like, I want to end this. I just need to end this. I wish I'd done that here.
The bright side for him, though, and this is reaching, this is everything. It's not, in fact, it's the most likely scenario for him, but it still, anything can happen. That's why we race dirt bikes. His situation definitely has to be a comfortable place after, we talked about Foxborough is probably, at the rate we're going to go down as the race he won the championship at, because he's now put himself in a position where every weekend he can feel it out. Like, if it's just not there, we just hang with Chase as long as we can. We get seconds. But, we now counting the next four. We have four. Coop has 4 chances to just have a night where, not that this seals the deal, but if he gets one win ahead of Chase, it gives him again that gap where he can just sit back and let it come to him.
Yeah, it changes his outlook completely.
Yeah, it's, hey, I got 4 chances to show up, and if it clicks one of those nights, like I said, it's such a small amount of points we're talking about, but he can sort of end it on one really good performance. He could sort of end this thing. But there's like I said, it's a comfortable position, but then there's also that thing in the back of the mind where it's like you can't get too comfortable. And that's got to keep him a little bit fired up, like, okay, I'm in a great position. To your point, though, with Chase, I will say mental warfare, the stress of, like, on one hand, the stress is you have to perform the next 4. No, like I said, no foot wrong, no nothing. The other end is just F it. Like, at this point, you don't have a lot to lose because of what Coop is. So just do your best every single weekend and hope plays out. If Chase pulls this off, yeah, everybody will look, some people will look back at this championship and go, oh, well, Eli was out and Jen was out and this and this and this. I would think the lessons learned from Chase's own personal standpoint of how to manage himself, manage his emotions, manage these races, if he can pull this off against Webb, I think this would be extremely valuable for him going forward. Dare I argue more than his first 450 Supercross title? Like, the lessons that could be learned and what this could do for him as a long-term champion?
Yeah, well, I think championship or not, you learn every year, don't you? You pick up different things. It is true what you say, though. Like, Chase's position, although stressful, and it depends on your personal character, how you handle it, but he can just come in and be like, nothing to lose, here we go, let's just send it. Whereas for Coop, you could argue his position is more stressful because it's within touching distance. So it's like, oh my God, if I blow this, it will be terrible, and I can't blow this when I'm so close. Whereas for Chase, he's almost like, well, I've already blown it, so let's just see what we can make of this situation.
Coop definitely falls in the situation. I don't mean to talk about riders being out, but again, because of some of the guys that are out, I mean, it does put Coop in a great point. If we had one other really stout name in this right now, it would be stressful from Coop. I would think a lot more because, there is that opportunity of, I just am not feeling it one of these nights. There's more of that feeling that somebody can slot in. Again, Aaron could do it. Kenny technically could do it. But because of the situation of those guys, it definitely gives Coop that a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, we may get Tomac back, but there's no way he's costing Webb the championship. So that's almost a moot point. And yeah, do you think that, okay, maybe AP can get, or Roxon can get in there on raw pace, but do you think there's a world where Webb is the one to make a mistake and give up points, a la the first main event in Birmingham? Because I don't, and especially for both riders, if there was ever a time for it to go poorly and either one of them to finish outside of the top two, it would have been Philadelphia with the start crash and whatnot. So the fact that they came through and finished 1-2 so commanding as well in Philadelphia just gives me confidence that that's the way we're going the rest of the season.
Well, especially look at both of them, minus what happened there. And like both of them were going to come out with top 3 to 4 starts. They're both pretty on point with their starts. They're coming out together. The early sprint pace was fine. Like you said, Philly was maybe not a worst case scenario because neither of them were on the ground with Aaron, but it was still pretty meh, and they just followed each other through and made it happen. And it kind of makes you feel like most situations that's going to happen for the next couple of weeks. Again, dirt bike racing, anything could happen. One of them could just absolutely toss it, but I just feel like they're so locked in at this point. It would be a gut punch to this championship in this series if we get to Denver and one of them just blows Denver severely. It's going to be such a gut punch to this thing.
Well, even if we go to East Rutherford and Webb wins and Chase gets third, that's also just like, well.
That's, again, Webb is definitely in what we talked about earlier. Like, he has, unless Webb goes down, like Chase is different where every week he has to perform. Webb just needs one night to end this thing. One night.
I almost wonder if maybe Webb, and again, we're talking about Webb, so it's almost all irrelevant because we know he's so mentally strong and secure in his position. But we know Chase is really good in Salt Lake. And I feel like I would back Chase over Webb in Denver because I feel like from what we've seen on the West Coast hardpack tracks, Chase seems to be better than Webb, or at least if I'm look back at the beginning of this year, like Anaheim 2 was a week 1 for Webb, Chase won A1 and Glendale Triple Crown. So maybe Webb feels a sense of urgency to get this win in the next 2 weeks, to not leave it. Obviously, you want to get it done sooner rather than later anyway, but not leave it to Denver and Salt Lake where maybe he has an eye on the fact that Chase could be better than he is at these venues.
Yeah. No, I agree with that sense. I mean, again, Webb's the quality of rider. It can happen any weekend, but you lean towards the next two because I would think, to your point, yes, Chase naturally seems stronger on hardpack tracks in general over Webb, but particularly this year. So, yeah, I would lean towards if Webb doesn't get it done in the next two, a win over Chase, you would kind of think like, okay, the last two are really going to come down to the wire. And I mean, I don't think it's super likely, but there is a part of me, of course, it's Villa rubbing hands like, man, what if we get through the next, it sounds crazy, but counting last week, and what if Chase could go 4 in a row, get the next 3, and we go into Salt Lake with the most perfect thing ever, Chase 3 points down. Definitely as it gets tighter, if we just hit those marks where it just moves to the next round, the peg just keeps moving to the next round because he just keeps finishing a position ahead. We get to a final round scenario where it's basically winner take all between the two. I definitely would rather be in Chase's situation. Actually, let me ask you this. Would you rather be in Chase's situation because of Aaron's quality right now, or Coop's because Webb's situation because of how good of a starter Jay Coop is?
Well,
who do you think has more quality of assistance from their teammate and is able to lean on them harder if it comes to a final round showdown?
I think both of them can lean on them equally situationally, depending on who gets to start. But I'd go for option C. And if we get to that point, I'd rather be Chase because I've just won 4 rounds in a row. 3 rounds in a row, would it be? Whatever it would be at that point. So I would have all the momentum on my side, and I would have flipped the script and put Webb on the ropes when Webb had me on the ropes. So that would be most valuable. And it's worth noting that Philadelphia was crucial, I think, for momentum because Chase did start behind Webb, make the move, execute, you know, like, and I think you could see, I feel like this is a trend with all of Chase's wins, but you could see in his celebration and on the podium that it was another weight lifted off of his shoulders.
Yeah.
So I do feel like it was crucial for Chase moving forward. Obviously it was points wise, but also just for him in himself. Although I will say, for whatever reason, he seemed to be in an amazing mood all day Saturday and all day Friday. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of that, like, screw it attitude, but yeah, there was that.
I'll come back to the teammate thing here in a second. I wanted to touch on Chase's overall attitude. You know, there is the rumors floating around right now. You know, there is the contract talk between staying at KTM and going to Kawasaki, and, you know, thinking about this a lot this last week. And you have the maybe general fan just being like, oh yeah, he's, you know, some of the comments you see is like, Chase is unhappy clearly with the bike. He'll jump ship, or they'll offer more money. He'll jump ship. He'll do this. He'll jump ship. Some of the aspects I don't know if people weigh in return. Like, I think of, I mean, you talked about this a little bit. Let's break down some of the stuff. His age and his situation, if he were to move on, like, you know, how many teams that strikes off he can go back to. It takes Honda, KTM, and then if Cowie doesn't go well, it takes Cowie off the board. But other things, like looking at how happy he is, how dialed in he is, great people in his corner. He loves training with Tom. We all know that. Like, having Vialle, I think, as a teammate and a training partner is important to him. His relationship with Jade as a mechanic, I don't think Jade would leave / go with him. Jade seems pretty secure at KTM. There's things like that add up, and then seeing Chase's current form and happiness that leads again to me leaning more towards him staying put.
Yeah, I don't know. I still feel like it's 50-50. I mean, again, I've said
total
all along,
50-50.
I would bet on him staying at KTM. I've said that since Anaheim 1, but I mean, I think you can make a case either way, and I think that it almost changes weekly based on what transpires at the races. Yeah, I don't know. It all depends on what's going on in his head, I guess. And as we've kind of learned over 13 rounds, there's a lot that goes on in his head, more than most of the riders in the pits. So, yeah, I don't know if it's possible to guess, but I don't think that anything gets done until May, end of April, May. Because I still do not believe that anything is done at the moment.
Yeah.
So
another thing that kind of ticks off of that is the situation you put yourself in going forward for a title. Let's say we get down to this last round or two showdown, something that is completely plausible, and this goes back to kind of Dungey Mooscan. Aaron could be leading one of these things and basically make way for Chase. That is completely plausible and could happen across these last 4 rounds. And again, between the two, that's where I was kind of talking about the teammate situation a little bit is, you know, J. Coop is a fantastic starter and has had great sprint speed, but J. Coop hasn't been in that position late enough in the race to maybe be a factor where, like I said, could happen. We could have a Marvin Dungey situation again, which every little point counts. I don't know. Yeah, I would expect Aaron, having just redone his deal a couple weeks ago, being a team player and doing it if required or if necessary.
Oh yeah, we're at the point now where both of them will we're at the point now where both of them kind of have to play ball, but they are both great starters and they should both be in the picture at some point or another. Both AP and J. Coop got caught up in that first turn crash in Philadelphia, so were kind of rendered irrelevant. But I do think that they are both probably, I mean, I don't really know where to position Roxon at the moment, but I do think that they are both probably the next best guys. Maybe Malcolm, and maybe even Barsha, if he can shed this black cloud that seems to be following him everywhere he goes.
It followed him off a berm this weekend.
But yeah, no, I do think that Philadelphia was big for Chase, just momentum-wise. He did the pistol at Webb, which was unexpected. And then equally on the other side, I think the Webb really didn't enjoy his second place in Philadelphia and maybe comes out in East Rutherford with just the most intensely focused attitude ever. And maybe we see the best Cooper Webb we've seen all year. I think that's also on the table. But for now, it's almost a stalemate. Nothing's really changed. And if this thing's going to stay alive, we kind of need Chase to win again in East Rutherford. So watch this space, I guess. Not so much to say about Roxon in third, other than let me ask you this. If Roxon's healthy, does he win that? Because he did have a nice little buffer.
I thought about that early on because of the buffer in the sprint pace early. One of the first things that struck me is like a healthy Roxon from Daytona, like around that era, would be getting another win this season. Yeah, I do think so. I mean, you can just see it in his body language, his riding, everything around the 10-minute mark, how he just runs out of the ability to continue on with what's going on with his shoulder and his ankle. Yeah, I think, not for sure, but I think a healthy Roxon would bring it down at least to the last couple laps.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe you have to factor in the fact that Roxon has a much, much, much better relationship with Chase than he does Webb. Maybe you have to keep that in mind now moving forward as well, because I think that plays a part somewhere.
Oh, yeah, because I said, was it 2 rounds ago? I was joking about it. It partially came up with Chase's position, how quickly he made the pass happen. But sometimes you do get that little bit of a feeling that Kenny tries a little bit harder to keep Webb behind him. He will block a little harder. He will send it a little bit harder, which is natural with, like I said, it's not, there's even a part where, because of Webb's comment on the podium, I have a friend that's a big TikTok guy, and he was just sending me all these posts that people are making about, like Webb and Chase's rivalry because of Webb sending the podium. Knowing that 450 class really has issues with one another at any real point, but yeah, Kenny has a little bit of a pass with Webb where he definitely would, if he was in a situation like, I'd rather push a little harder to hold him back if it lets Chase maybe get an extra second or two out.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting. And once again, I'm just relieved that we're not sat here saying, well, that's probably it. We get to live another day. And if you go to Decal Works and order yourself a set of graphics, then your graphics will not only live another day, they will live for multiple days because of the sheer quality of the production over at decalmx.com. Head there, see all that they have available for your bike, more than just graphics. And yeah, jump into the wonderful world of Decal Works, like Chase Sexton, Tom Vialle, Aaron Plessinger, Julian Beaumer, and many, many, many more riders. I was surprised. I felt like Malcolm was really racy early on, and I was surprised that he ended up so far adrift in fourth because he looked competitive, and I don't really know why or how he fell off so much.
No, I agree with that. I don't know either. I remember seeing it early on and being like, okay, I thought maybe even before Chase and Webb got there, I thought maybe Malcolm would march to the front to challenge Kenny, or at least when Webb and Sexton came through, maybe he would go with them. But yeah, it just kind of didn't. It petered out after a couple laps. Very strange.
Malcolm did tell me on Friday in press day that he has not had any communication about 2026, and there is very little development on his side, which is interesting because I think I thought, and I think he thought as well, that the ball would have rolled a little more by now. But he did kind of hint that there was interest from others as well, which is obviously expected with his form this year. But yeah, I'm surprised that, presuming he's telling the truth, I'm surprised that hasn't really progressed much.
I mean, I think that still tells us, we were kind of waiting for around this month for the KTM group in general to start making decisions. AP's got done a little over 2 weeks ago. That was kind of a no-brainer for his situation. But I think a lot of it really falls now waiting to see what happens with Chase. Also seeing still what is Rockstar Racing. Is it Huskies? Is it Gas? Is it still a mix? If it's a mix with likely Barsha, leaving, do they need to move Malcolm? I think there's some stuff there that will kind of drag his out. But in general, I think Chase's decision holds up a lot of things for a lot of OEMs at this point, because I'm sure one of the people that Malcolm's probably talking to is also talking to Chase. So it's just waiting to see what happens. Yeah.
That's what happens when you're the big dog. You can do whatever you like and cause everyone else's deals to hang in the balance. Yeah, it's just funny because, again, I think I agree with you from everything I've heard. I didn't think Chase has done a deal. We think it will wait to the end of Supercross, which, if so, that still puts us a month out. Kind of all this movement that's been happening the last 2 or 3 weeks is just going to go on pause for the next month. There'll be little rumors or maybe some conversations that happen here and there, but anything major is just going to feel like it's pretty stalled out for the next 4 weeks. I do think J-Coop is either done or right in the process of re-signing at Star.
Yep.
So, you heard that too.
Yeah.
But J. Cooper's sixth behind Joey Savacci, who I don't really understand because I feel like Joey can do this consistently. So I don't really know why now. Like what? Like this is almost the point when it shouldn't happen because he's coming off of a fairly severe injury. It's only his second race back. He didn't qualify last week. If anything, he's in the lowest point of his season. And yet we've now just risen from the ashes with a result that, again, incredible. His season best by far. But I feel like this should be much more normal for Joey. So I don't really know how to analyze this one. He did tell me that it felt like a sloppy fifth, and he was surprised almost that a sloppy performance could get him such a good result. One of those situations where seeing is believing a little bit. I think that now that he's done it, maybe believes that it's more possible than ever. So maybe we see more of this moving forward. But Joey is certainly better than the results that we've seen through the first 12 rounds.
I think Joey by far is one of the most underrated riders in general, 250, 450 class, but also sometimes it's hard to say that when you just see these run of unusual results and performances from him. Then you see this, and that's the thing. Stoked for him, but I'm not, it's kind of not, it's surprising because of the timing, but the result itself is not surprising at all. Really, with Joey, this is totally what he's capable of. The more surprising part to me, if he backs up next week, I just don't know with him sometimes. I'm sure he feels the same.
Props to J. Coop, AP, and McElrath for all coming through to 6th, 8th, and 12th, respectively, after that first turn crash. I feel like for each of those guys, that's commendable. J. Coop, especially with his 6th place. Props to them. And Benny Bloss has re-signed with Beta for 2026, so that's done. One of the first shoes to fall, and not a surprise. I think he was maybe a little bit stressed about it, but not a surprise to see them extend. And if anything, I just feel happy for Benny because he's been such a big part of the development of this program that it would have been unfortunate for someone else to reap what he sowed a little bit, you know?
It's cool on those guys because even, go back to their first year, last year, if I remember right, between Benny and Colt was the first person they were negotiating with, but Colt's drug out so long that Benny was the first rider signed because Benny rode the bike, committed to them. Or actually, no, Benny did not ride the bike. Isn't that right? Because Colt wanted to. Benny just committed.
Benny just committed.
Yeah, so I'm stoked to see them commit back to him. He's been excellent. You'd have to think, Mitchell has been absolutely excellent on that bike this year as well, unless they're waiting to see if somebody, maybe they feel like higher up market ends up falling off the bandwagon of where they are. I would think maybe we'll see Mitchell's pretty soon too, because Benny has been super impressive, but Mitchell over an opening portion of the season was more impressive, was having better results than Benny on certain weekends. I feel like they've been a really good pair there.
Yeah, I would almost. The season's not done, but I think I would almost pick Oldenburg as my underrated star of 2025.
Yep.
Because he has been quietly very, very good, and maybe even we haven't given him enough credit. Barsha was 14th, and I, in the moment, presumed that he just made a very dumb mistake and went flying off the berm. But there's actually history to this. So his rear brake just was gone when he entered that 180 turn. And it's not the first time either. I think it was the 4th time this year where out of nowhere, with no warning, he's just had no rear brake. And I think he said the last time was Tampa, but it's also happened midweek here or there. But the instances are so far apart that it's almost not been regular enough for a fix to be demanded. Yeah. But I think he's reached the end of his tether because combined with his other bad luck, and now this when he was in a great position with Chase and Webb further back as well as AP, J. Coop and others, this was his time to certainly get on the podium, maybe even better. So I would expect them to kind of run some drills on this thing now.
Yeah, this is a bit reaching, understandably so, but with Sexton and Webb getting caught up a little bit there, and knowing that Roxon would fade because of shoulder and ankle, for the split second that JB was up there, I actually thought, oh my God, here we go. Another new race winner for this year. Barsha is going to turn it around all in one night. I went as far as not podium, but I was thinking for a split second, Barsha's that quality guy. It could all turn around here, and he's over the berm.
Yeah, well, he has been riding that good. He has just had horrendous
luck. That's saying it'd be one thing if it was like AP's form earlier in the season, and all of a sudden, AP had a couple good results for a win. Barsha, as of late, is not like AP early in the season. It's not poor form and poor riding. Barsha's been riding really well. It's just every single weekend something happens to him.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And then also Thursday before Philadelphia, he tore up his finger really badly. He's just resting it this week to try and stop it from getting infected.
I remember seeing his Instagram post. What did he say? What he did? Was it riding?
Yeah, crashed.
Okay, he just crashed riding. Okay.
But he lost his rear brake and then couldn't use his front brake because of the finger. So it was a terrible timing all round. And yeah, he was over it after the race. Not in a great mood. I think like I say, he finally reached the end of his tether with this very weird and bizarre season that he's having. Dean Wilson was 17th after stalling it, arm pump, which has always been a Dean Wilson thing for as long as I can remember. In fact, for as long as I can remember, going back to his very first 450 race. But it got me thinking. Fill-in riders have certainly dropped off somewhat in recent years, and it's one race. But does this somewhat reinforce the fact that there isn't really a need for fill-in riders anymore, or there's not really a justification for it, except if a sponsor is demanding it in order to pay an invoice?
Yeah, a bit. If anything, something of Honda's position, you look upfield, look at what Shane's doing, look what Dylan's doing, look what Joey's doing. I definitely fall in the category of, unless you have a sponsor reason telling you to do it, I don't know, help the other guys that are out there on the bike that are already seasoned and well in. Unless, the fill-in is just the most obvious thing on the face of the earth, it's tough. Okay, take even Dean's situation right now. It kind of reminded me of the conversation you had with Craig. And I know Dean pushed for more races because originally they were only going to do, I think they offered him the last 4, and he pushed to make it 5. It's definitely like, okay, would this been better if we just had gotten this out of the way 2 weekends ago and started? Like, even low prep, just like, let's just get races under our belt. Not that it's doing much better for Christian, but similar theory kind of hits me of like, is it worth like, okay, we'll wait an extra couple weeks to get dialed, and then you come out to the race and you're still just so far behind the 8 ball in a sense. Like, and not saying his pace, just like you said, getting the arm pump, getting the nerves out, getting back into a racing mode.
Yeah, I think that one of the elements of this sport that will just live on forever is the fact that every single rider will underestimate just how hard it is to jump in mid-season, no matter how prepared you are. Time and time again, we see it. So
it actually falls back to HRC, but somebody I always respected so much for not wasting time, if you remember it, is Kennard. I swear Kennard would always go racing within a week of being back on, like a week or two of being back on a motorcycle. And he always kind of was like a perfect example of me of just like, get it over with, just get out there, get it done, figure it out. Because you could spend an extra month and a half getting ready. Probably isn't going to change the result that much.
Well, that Dean would have loved to get out on track quicker just to make use of his Yoshimura pipe even sooner, because he must have been like a kid on Christmas staring at that thing. And in fact, he probably went to yoshimura-rd.com and just browsed and drooled and dreamt of what lied ahead. And you don't even have to wait. If you want that experience, you can just head to the website, figure out what you need for your motorcycle, pull the pin, and make use of power and performance within a couple of days, a week, whatever. What an opportunity that lies ahead for riders around the world. Let's move on to 250s, yeah?
Yeah.
Lovely. This didn't feel very showdown-y to me, and I don't know why. I don't know if it was a day race, or maybe it's because Indy really wasn't that long ago, but like, I don't know. It
definitely is.
Hit.
Yeah, it's definitely worth having them this close together, and then Salt Lake coming so close.
It just didn't hit the same to me. I think it might have been because it was a day race, and also I had many personal issues on Saturday, so maybe it was that as well, because I was very preoccupied and very emotional.
Whoa.
Well, what?
Well, I was saying this sounds more interesting than our race conversation.
No, it's well publicized. I got hacked. Like,
oh,
everything.
I completely forgot to ask. Did you get your X back yet? I didn't look.
But they hacked my Twitter. They hacked my Instagram. They hacked my email. They tried to hack my bank, but luckily my bank did a fraud thing. And they messaged me.
Did they offer to sell it all back to you for 1,000 rubles or whatever Russian money is?
They messaged me. Let's see. I've still got the message. They messaged me, "You're not safe anymore. Expect us." So it's very hard for me to focus on the showdown with that sort of threat being thrown around. But
that's like your next one. I didn't realize it got worse than that.
I've lived to tell the tale. Anyway, not very showdowny for me. But honestly, so there was a lot of Cole Davies hype coming in. A lot of people picked him to win. I didn't, purely because I subscribe to the theory that the second win is harder to get than the first. And the first, you can maybe just almost be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. But then you start to expect it, aim for it more, and maybe I feel like that can work against you. So I was wrong, because not only did Davies win, he won in a dominant fashion and really underlined his position in this class with both regions combined. It was maybe the most impressive 250 performance that we've seen in 2025 Supercross. I almost have no words.
Yeah. I'm going to open it with what could be considered a very harsh question. It's not meant to be that. It's just throwing this out there. Davies, again, a rookie who wasn't even supposed to race this year, hadn't even touched the Supercross track till, much later than most of these guys coming from New Zealand to do this. Does this performance make you rate Davies that much higher, or does it, dare I say it, and I'm not, again, this is not my opinion, this is throwing out as a question, does it make you look less at RJ and Hayden's situation? Guys, take especially RJ that has so much time in this class, Seth, Joe, Tom, guys that are...
Well, why did you leave Deegan out of that
in a
list?
sense, how highly you rate the current 250 class that Cole can come out and do this, and how complete he looks as a rider. Do you fall that into the category of Cole is just that amazing, or just that kind of night that he clicks because you're watching RJ, Seth, Joe, Tom, guys inside the top 5 kind of struggle with sections, putting stuff together, and Cole just looks so picture perfect.
Any reason why you left Deegan out of these various lists?
Deegan, I said Haiden first.
Oh, okay.
In that when I started rolling to it. But yeah, Haiden. A little bit more like RJ and Seth and Joe have been around longer. Of course, Hayden's going to already be exiting the class here pretty soon. But same, any of them, does it make you look at that quality of guy different, or does it make you jump Cole in terms of rating, of what you think Cole's capable of?
It's basically glass half full, glass half empty. I'd probably lean on the Cole side more. Because he just handled everyone. So I wasn't looking at it wow, everyone else is riding really badly for Cole to do this. I kind of just looked at it as, wow, Cole is riding unbelievably well. We know his commitment in the whoops compared to some of his peers. We know his confidence is rising. And I think that, is Haiden under threat? There's 17 points and two? Yeah, 2 for West.
Yeah.
But 1 showdown. So Hayden's not under threat, I don't think, but it's certainly not, it shouldn't be ignored by Haiden.
Yeah, anything can happen. I definitely think of, we'll get into as we talk about. East is wide open right now on this title hunt, but the most certain of all 3 titles right now, Haiden seems by far the most sure. By far none. He's got the most control of his situation. And his very early season form was amazing, but I think we've all seen how he's righted the ship with his training and drills and just everything, switching his approach. I think Haiden is quite solid at the moment. It would be very hard for me to see him actually throw this away, because that's basically what it'd have to do is, yes, Cole could win the next 2. It's still not making that much inroads. Haiden legitimately has to throw this away.
Yeah, I agree. And you bring both coasts together, you get the best of the best. And who rises to the top? Of course, Yamaha Motor USA, with not just the race winner, but 1-2, and in such a commanding fashion. It was basically the reason why the showdown didn't feel very showdowny to me, is because it was basically a live action Yamaha advert. So that was probably why that was not the regular experience or vibe for me. Yeah. Yamaha also won in Moto in MX2 for the first time this year today. So it's all coming up Yamaha, and specifically the YZ250F, I guess, all around the world. And you too should use Yamaha. So go and do that. Find a local dealer. Do what you got to do. Find a Yamaha. Get on it. Change your life. I think I don't know. I think there's still more to be said about Haiden, but I don't really know what. Like, I think we all would have expected by this point for him to just be handling this class without much trouble. I mean, even...
It is interesting. Like, I'm not trying to. This is what I was saying earlier about comparisons. I guess a little bit what I meant with the Cole thing is like, don't get me wrong, Haiden is highly touted, has great results, and has done a lot in a short time. But let's we'll throw out the comparison. We're comparing him to the person that was just recently ahead of him in terms of being considered like towards a generational talent, a very dominant riders. Yes, Jet wasn't absolutely destroying the 250 class when he left, but he was quite a bit more. Most of these guys, like Jet, would have his off nights, but it seemed like his win performances were pretty big, and we weren't quite seeing that. Haiden, at what's getting near the end of his 250 career, we'll probably see him race Supercross again next year, but then the question mark comes up after Supercross season next year if he goes 450 for outdoors. If not, it's by 450 Supercross the next season. I'm just curious if he can launch pad from here. Like, we come back to Supercross next year, can he be more dominant, or can another rookie like Cole come in and compete with him? Where does that kind of, it makes you think of where he'll stack up once he does go 450.
Well, yeah, put simply, Cole certainly takes some of the shine off of Haiden. At the moment, positioning the two alongside each other, because with Haiden, all he's done, who he is, the pedigree, the training, the promotion, all of that, no one would have bet that a rookie from New Zealand would be maybe proving to be the better Supercross rider. I think you can even make that argument.
Yeah.
So,
if you are Star Racing, you have to be excited because, when we left the Ferrandis, J. Coop, Nichols kind of era, it was like, okay, they're in a reset. Haiden has shined through for them and collected titles. But then it was kind of the same, a little bit question mark when he goes to leave, because it's like, okay, Thrasher has not put himself together as a championship capable rider yet. Bennick has not quite panned out yet, and poor Bennick got KO'd again this weekend. But having Cole be able to scoop him up kind of puts them in a position like, okay, we still, there might not be as much of a gap when Haiden leaves, maybe as I would have thought, 6 months ago.
Yeah, I can see that. Certainly,
like, they backed it up well with the Max choice. Also, that's a little different though, because Max, I consider that different because Max is a veteran. Like, they almost they didn't steal him from a team. Like, Max earned his way there and came a very different path. But in terms of bringing up young talent, like, it's definitely going to make Star feel good. Like, in the sense of like, okay, we have future here.
Yeah, certainly in Supercross. Outdoors, obviously, Haiden has proven himself to be the class of the field, dominant. Yeah. Everything that we thought Haiden would be in Supercross, he is outdoors. So maybe that's where Star would feel the burden more, but obviously Supercross takes priority. So, they are looking very good. Not to dwell on Foxborough too much, but let me just dwell on Foxborough too much. Talking to Hampshire on press day. Oh my. So we all saw the first turn crash in Foxborough. Now I'm talking. Yeah. He blames the whole shot device because it didn't come off. So there's that. A. B. He said his bike was so covered in mud, levers were bent and stuff. When he got back on it, he did 2 sections and was genuinely convinced he picked up the wrong bike, and was then freaking out because he didn't know what the protocol was when you're on the wrong bike, which, to be fair, neither do I. And I don't know if that's in the rule book. I don't know what you would do. Honestly, I guess you would just pull into the pits and then maybe swap if the other guy... But then, how does that work? If you're the other guy, do you just, if I'm the other guy and RJ has taken my bike, I don't think I then just take RJ's bike. I think I just kind of stand there what the fuck? I'm not well, I'll just take this one then. So, but obviously he was on his bike, but that was in his mind. I think last week I said 90% chance it was him who went backwards through the rhythm section. It was indeed him, and he found it very funny and owned it completely, but he did basically do what I described and made the section his own and basically went, this is my piece of track now and this is the direction I'm choosing to go. So, felt like it was important to nail those details. But similar to Foxborough, where 15th should have ruled him out of the title chase, crash in the first turn, pre-restart. Not the cleanest day, but once again, RJ's come up smelling of roses and he now has a red plate for the first time this year. Almost feels like a cat with 9 lives a little bit, but hey, it's working. And also, it was the Nashville showdown last year that really catapulted him into this thing. So RJ in showdowns, look at that. It's his thing.
The interesting part to me is we went from it's very odd to go from a tie with 2 riders to a tie with 2 more riders in the next.
I'm here for it because we can't.
Huh?
I'm here for it though. What a championship!
It's tough. So you do that. Do you look at like that performance of RJ and you look at past history and be like, it's a tie, so you can't say like it's RJ, but like, do you lean on him more or do you look at like Seth? Hey, Seth is more consistent. Seth is still just putting this together and staying in it. Like, which do you? I mean, and then Tom's still right there. Let's throw out title percentages. Do you have any feeling on this, or are we just 33, 33, 33 across the board?
No, I said the same last week. I have tried really hard to figure out who I think is going to win this, and I have no idea. There's nothing that's pulling me to either of them. There's nothing. Like I am basically made of stone because I have no feeling. There's nothing that stands out. There's nothing that jumps off the page. There's no fact that I'm now going to say, but this guy, I feel like they are all... So I would have said Tom's consistency would help him, but I actually think that now Seth is just as consistent, and I think that RJ, despite a unique path to it, is also consistently there. So I think that's a scratch. Equally, I would have said Tom's speed is his downfall, but we'll get to it. I feel like he is on par with RJ and Seth there. So I don't know. They are all just starts. I don't even know if I favour one of them on starts. I don't.
I don't know if I fall I kind of I've been backing Seth for weeks. I fall that Seth is a little bit the perfect in the middle. I think he's more consistent than RJ. I think RJ, still downright might be the fastest of the trio we're talking about. I think Seth just has a perfect little middle ground between the raw speed and the consistency. I definitely peg him of the 3. He seems like the least likely of me to throw it away over the next couple races.
Yeah, which is crazy because we don't have any history to support that. But I think I'm feeling similar vibes there.
I agree with you in the sense that it's hard to pick one. I'm just, and this is not factual. This is, again, we don't have history to go off. This is like just me kind of playing a personal feeling card, and I've been saying it for rounds now. I lean on Seth. I have some weird feeling that this is Seth's year for everything he's been through. I think it's just gonna kind of come together. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be pretty. I still think it's just gonna be a shit show through the end.
It could have very nearly been Seth's had we not had a red flag, because he was in a great position to put his stamp on this thing. So had it not been for the red flag, we could be sat in a very, very, very different position now. But thankfully, we have, like I say, 450 is still alive. Certainly interesting and tense and really gripping. 250 East needs no explanation. This is almost what dreams are made of. And you could argue that West isn't quite settled either. And you know what? If West is the most settled, then what a great place to be. 2025 Supercross, catch a fever.
Question for you being there in person. Tom's heat race when that crash when you watch the replay, he shoulder head checked into the side of the jump pretty hard. But still, I am one of the least fans of guys pulling off that are that quick in a heat race. I get it. It's an East heat race, which is a little more like a main. I don't know because the camera zoomed in on him how far back he was by the time he got up. But man, I was screaming at the TV, don't give up. Don't just guarantee yourself a spot in the LCQ. This is a bad idea.
No, he said the bike was really bent and he really hurt his neck and his shoulder. So he was alarmed for many reasons. Because I said to him straight up, do you not think that you should have at least done a lap? And he was like, no, the bike was fucked and so was I. So, but what a great segue to our annual Tom Vialle Sympathy Corner. Because once again... I
feel like it's been every week.
Yeah, annual. Isn't annual...
Annual's yearly, isn't it?
Yeah, no, annual every episode. It's
annual every episode.
It's an annual staple of the episodes. So
annual is occurring once every year, so we're well beyond once every year.
We're going to run with it. Once again, I doubt this was shown on TV. I haven't watched it back yet. Tom was right. Okay, so the heat race and the LCQ were disasters. But the main event, Tom was riding really, really well and actually reeled in RJ and Seth from a decent little way back. He was, for the mid part of the race, he was the best of the trio easily. But no one's going to notice that. And admittedly, he kind of fell apart, not fell apart, but lost time at the end, and Joe got him, which didn't help him points-wise. Otherwise, we would have the trio separated by 1 point. But let's not get greedy. But yeah, his great main event, I feel, will be overlooked. And also, he will be overlooked now because RJ and Seth have the red plates, which will make everyone automatically go, Tom lost the red plate? Oh, he's out of this thing. But no. For Tom to stay so close on a night that could have been disastrous for many reasons, I think that strengthens my belief in Tom even more. So, that is your Tom Vialle Sympathy Corner, presented by Motorex. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean, care, and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care, and lube products. Stay tuned next week to see what sympathy we have for Tom Vialle. And if we run out, which is surprising that we haven't already, I'll make one up.
Let me ask you a Tom question. So earlier in the season, a couple rounds in, him holding the red plate, decent points cap, there was kind of jokes like, hey, he could win this thing without even winning a race at the rate we're going here. Position he's in now, we have 2 standard races left for East Coast and then, one more showdown. To win this title, do you feel like because of his situation against both RJ and Seth, you'd have to imagine he has to win one of the next 2 standard races to win this title, right? We are not winning this title without a race win.
No, I think I go the other way because if he was up against one rider, he would have to win. But if you're up against 2, then that means the need for a win is less because if RJ goes 1-3 and Seth goes 3-1 and Tom goes 2-2, then it's almost a wash all around. I think the fact that Tom is going up against 2 riders rather than 1 puts an emphasis on consistency and being there rather than just wins. Maybe, I don't know. I've never been in this position. But yes, he wants to win. I think he's quite desperate to win, and I certainly, this goes without saying, do not think he wants to hold a number 1 plate without getting a main event win.
Who, at the end of this whole thing, let's talk about every class real quick. Let's talk about Haiden, RJ, Tom, Seth, Webb, Sexton, the whole lot of them.
Oh, wow.
Whole lot of them. I know 450 is premier class. Bringing it down to their situations, their championships, etc. Of all of them, if any one of them win the title, who do you feel like at the end of it you would be the most impressed that they win their title? Like just the most you fucking earned this in the worst possible way of that whole group. Is it Chase? Is it Tom?
No, it's Chase or Davies, isn't it?
Davies definitely. I didn't even say his because his is so. I thought, yes, if Davies won, downright it's Davies. But I say that Davies would require straight up like I said, it requires Haiden to basically throw it away. Chase could win his just off some just very tenacious races wins. Like Tom's gonna be one without a win. Like RJ and all the others seem to take some chaos or could just win off their performances the next couple of races, just being that bit better. Davies needs something to happen for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've put so much emphasis on the fact that Chase has to win out, but there are other paths to the championship, who knows what's going to happen. We've seen that in years gone by. Denver seems to have a very weird voodoo around it. So it's not a given that Chase has to win out to win the championship. It just feels that's most likely. But if we are sat after Salt Lake City and Chase has gone unbeaten from this point to then to win the championship on a tie break, then I think that is history making. That is the most never say die, you can't count me out thing ever. So I think that would be referenced for decades to come, certainly as long as I'm alive. So yeah, I think that East is just throw them up in the air and let them fall. Who knows? Literally, you tell me that in 4 weeks' time I'm sat here talking about either of that trio as champion, then yep, cool. All feels the same to me. Doesn't feel different with anyone. It's not like, and if Tom doesn't win, I won't look at him differently. If RJ's on the wrong bike, I won't look at him differently. It just, I don't know. I'm very struggling with this East title fight. I don't know what to grab onto to lean towards the guy. Tom was also back to the sympathy corner. He was the Supercross man that he is. He was the first and most prominent to triple after the whoops consistently. So, and also, more sympathy, Tom was low-key one of the best guys in the whoops. So I think we've gotten better there as well.
Yeah.
So
speaking of the triple after the whoops, did you watch the one lap where Haiden was almost a torpedo?
Yes. Who was that he ran it on? RJ? I think it was RJ.
I think it was RJ. He completely almost looped out, missed the rear brake. On TV, they kind of just initially have it right when he lands in the corner, and you're like, what the heck was going on? Then it cuts back to the replay of everything that led up to it.
Well, with all due respect, does that moment there not make you go, maybe Davies does have a shot at this thing?
Not like so anything can happen. But my counter is Haiden also salvaged. Like, Hayden's got that weird mix of really good technique, bulldogish, just somehow makes things happen. Actually, on the Haiden conversation, I will say another funny one was his face plant in the mud puddle. Good on him for having a sense of humor with that from qualifying. Stood up, let the water rain out, and just kind of was like bringing it up to the crowd after he had the most embarrassing place you could land on the track face first.
Yeah, that wasn't far from ideal. Weirdly, this is going to come out of nowhere. I had a really good talk with Garrett Marchbanks on press day, and
I was going to bring him up next, so let's hear it.
And I learnt so much, and it kind of reinforced how we need to do better to talk to every single rider, which is near impossible, but also B, how the riders need to do better at telling their stories. Because after being so confused about Marchbanks and what should we expect, where should he be, what should he be doing, I feel like now I'm much more on track with where Marchbanks is, where he's going, the switch in trainers, the bike improvements, the attitude improvements. So I'm a believer.
Did he switch? Because he was on
Troll Training.
He was on Troll Training. Who did he switch to?
Brock.
Oh, he's working with Brock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, just wanted great conversation. I don't know how much of it I should really share here, but I'm a bit of a Marchbanks believer now. That's all it takes.
Oh wow, that's all it takes.
I
talked to him a few times this year, and you're like, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because I was confused. I even said to him, I went, honestly, you're the one rider. I don't know if I should celebrate a fifth place.
Did we explain why we disappeared for 1 week? Because Cowie didn't really explain what the injury was, that it went from we thought he was out for the season to back the next week.
No, we know that was explained.
Okay. I didn't know good enough detail. I just all of a sudden he's out for the season to he's back the next week.
No, it was very pleasant, and yeah. I said to him, honestly, you're the one guy, if you get fifth, I don't know whether to say you suck or if you're great. If you get second, I don't know whether to say this is amazing or this is normal. I was like, I don't really know what to think of you. So he told me what to think of him.
I got one for you. I think I may have mentioned this on the pod last week. I recorded for Silly Season this week on 250s. Is at the at Pro Circuit, you have Seth and Cameron, who are good for another year. They were on existing contracts. Drew's pro deal technically begins next year. He has 2 years. Levi's is up, but they're working on a re-up. The question mark comes down to Garrett and Ty, and a lot of people might be confused because Ty was announced as a multi-year deal. Well, Mitch clarified with me, no, yes and no. Ty has an option for next year, but the option's on the team end, and Garrett signed for a 1-year deal and took a chance on himself to go back to PC. Which of the two do you see more likely being a PC next year, Garrett or Ty? Huh?
Garrett.
Same.
Or insert any other rider name here.
Yeah. Neither of them, either both of them are out, or Garrett is. I think.
Do Garrett I see Gage Linville being a PC or Ty? Give me Gage Linville.
Yeah, I think.
Do I see Garrett... me being a PC or Ty? Give me.
Yeah. I think Garrett stays.
That's where I'm at least. But speaking of Garrett, speaking of PC, speaking of all that's going on there, Fox Racing, bold, untamed, and pushing the boundaries of aesthetic, style, and design. Fox Racing's new Spring MX graphics, launching with Hello Future, disrupt the status quo and make no apologies for that interruption. Comprised of head-to-toe kits, plus a slew of head-turning men's and women's lifestyle pieces, its spirited graphic combined with dialed-in fit, comfort, and construction sends a message loud, clear, and confidently. The future belongs to those brave enough to answer the call. Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of us as well as the sport. Fox Racing, such a staple in the industry. Of course, it needs little introduction, but we're very thankful for their support. I read the Triumph PRs quite intensely every week, and for a good couple of weeks now, Jeremy Coker's quote has started with, or ended with, sorry, we'll do what we can to make this better. So they would quite like to get out of this little slump that they're in. Although, I will say, I give some credit to Jordan because quietly, after a terrible start, he did move forward quite consistently, quite nicely, and I don't think it was a bad ride. Put it that way. It's a nice ride that no one will talk about.
I think Jordan's particularly last couple rounds in general, he gets a pass with like a result like that. He gets a pass with the year he's been having. The person who does not get a pass is the other person in this conversation that is...
The listeners are going to need some clarification.
Forkner.
There we go.
I thought it was obvious enough. I just don't know what to say.
I think I said it after like the second round, and now it's kind of coming true. I said, if Faulkner finishes the season with 0 results to speak of, but he does finish the season, do we have to just go, you finished the season? So are we like, where are we at with that now?
Here's what's weird. So I remember saying coming in, you're like, of course the move to Triumph is, change of scenery is good. The second one was like, if he goes to PC and doesn't win a race, doesn't race for the title, it's considered a failure. Like, because it's, what's been expected there for so long. I said he goes to Triumph, he gets a podium, maybe a race win, but crashes out of some races, just has an up and down year. It's considered a success. If he goes there and just has decent results, it's considered better than being a PC. This is still to the point now I'm questioning that thing. I'm like, I can't, it's good he gets through the season, but can we consider, there's one other rider I'm about to ask you somewhat of a similar question to. Do we consider this successful that we just survived?
I have to, even this weekend looking at him, it did cross my mind of like, wow, he's made it this far. So I have to give him some credit for that. My pessimistic attitude is he's missed even more outdoors than Supercross. And so I don't think the transition to outdoors is exactly going to go better. If anything, I think that may go worse. So that's my negative outlook.
The tough one I have, and let me ask you this from watching him round around, we see riders in slumps, but I don't know, maybe I'm being too also pessimistic on this one, has it been getting worse, the riding? No.
No, it hasn't been getting. He's very positive. Again, I read the Triumph PRs very intently, and he's actually getting more positive by the week because of little things that he can pick out.
Okay.
So, yeah, pays to read the PRs.
Can I hit you with my other rider I wanted to ask you, success versus not for the season?
Yeah, I have no idea who this is going to be. Moserman?
Julian Beaumer. Considering how the season started, considering his entire path to getting here, the rate, and I know this is weird, like Seattle was the fourth last time, that was better, but just also as up and down as some of these have been. If you look at based on how the season started, and at the rate we're going, if it kind of continues at this rate, do you still look back at Juju's season and go, this is great, success, because there was some, there was improvements made, shown that he can race for wins, puts him in a maybe a title contention conversation down the road? Or do you look as this was an opportunity missed based on how the season started? Which do you kind of lean towards?
I struggle with this with riders generally, because do you judge them based on what you thought before the first round? Because if before the first round you said Juju's going to win a race and finish top 3 in points, I think everyone would have gone, bloody hell, that's good, isn't it? Or do you judge based on what you've seen, which is that actually more than that was possible? That I never know what you're meant to, like, what's ethically correct in that situation.
Yep. And that's where I'm at with this, because if you just look at the number or the final result and the fact that we have such a highlight result and just kind of blanket that based on what I thought at the beginning of the season, I'd be like, yep, this is a success. But then I go off of the actual riding I saw early in the season and what was potentially possible and just kind of how it's gone derailed a bit. And then that's where I sit there going, am I being too harsh in the moment? Am I not weighing enough what my preseason perception of him was and what I thought he was capable of? So that's where, it comes back to which outweighs which. Are we in a position where at the end of the year you will look at his results at the end of the season, go, this was a great Supercross season for Juju, he has overperformed our expectation, or will you look at it as an opportunity missed, or is it a mixed bag and it's somewhere in the middle?
I will say that naturally the main event result of 12th doesn't shine a positive light, but he was in a much, much, much better position pre-restart. He was probably the rider that got screwed the most. I don't know what happened, but he was last. So he must have got caught up somewhere. So the result is not a true indication of his speed and form. Like, had the race not been restarted, he probably would have been top 6, 7, which I don't think we're then having this conversation. So I think that's important to note. And I don't know what side of the coin I'm meant to land on. Based on what I saw in the first 2 rounds, if you told me he wouldn't win another race this season, that would have surprised me. So there's that.
Yep.
But then also I can't get away from the fact that overall, he was never meant to be Deegan's nemesis, and he's taken a massive step up this year. And if he takes a similar step next year, then who knows what's going to come. So the trajectory is positive. You can't get away from that. So maybe it's just a case of not wanting too much too soon. I don't know.
Yep.
For us, I mean, not for him. For us not wanting too much too soon from him. Finally, I did just want to note that as we record this, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, there hasn't been an official update on Dax Bennick. We know he was knocked out, but whether there's any additional injuries or anything else, we don't know. And obviously we're not going to speculate. But he did have a gnarly concussion just a couple of weeks ago, so we wish him well, and we hope that everything is fairly okay there. And of course, when there is an update, we will share that. So normally Yamaha send out their race recap midday Monday. So if not sooner, there should be news then. Anything else from Philadelphia?
Last one. I wasn't scheduled to go this weekend, but I was jumping up and down for joy because, like everybody with the weather, I really thought this weekend was going to be just miserable. I did think it was going to be better than last weekend, purely on the fact that I thought it was going to rain so much that kind of our conversation from last weekend, more rain is better once it starts raining. Somehow we ended up with a way more raceable track, way better condition than I thought. Even if you would have told me based on the photos I saw from Friday and based on the weather updates I was getting from you and Sean on Friday, if you would have told me, hey, it's not going to rain more, but the track, if you could have shown me into the future what the track was going to look like, I'm pretty impressed at what the Dirtworks guys did.
Yeah, on Friday night at like 9 p.m, I was driving to the hotel and turning a corner on a major road. The puddle was so deep that it went like above the car. So that was it was honestly from Friday 10 a.m. to Saturday morning, the amount of rainfall was incredible. But once again, we know that if it doesn't rain during the program, they can work a miracle. The Achilles heel is rain during the program, and it's early, but Friday and Saturday does call for rain this weekend in East Rutherford. So watch this space again. The good news is from now, Sunday to Friday, there's no rain at all. So we're starting in a good position. But the weather forecast for Friday and Saturday is ominous. Also, I just remembered a loose scoop. Will Hahn is going to star as of Outdoors.
I saw that on a forum. Somebody posted that randomly, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but
I know he posted his house. He posted his house for sale, so I was kind of suspicious.
Yeah, I made the mistake of alerting fellow media to that, and then they scooped me on it on my scoop. But Will Hahn is going to star as team manager.
Team manager. Yeah, probably as 250 of some sort.
But no one's leaving.
It's interesting because that was some of their peak 250 performance. He was very involved with bike testing at the time. I don't think he rides near as much anymore, so I don't know if that role will come back around in any shape or form. But when you look at, the growth of Davies, yes, there's path to get to Davies. It starts with Townley, but they kind of gifted and handed him off to Will for basically all of last year. You look at the success Will's had with certain people in that program even before. I think it's a very, very good move on their part.
And other news, I think the two venues that haven't been confirmed for WSX are Costa Rica, and Malaysia. So do with
I
that
heard the Malaysian
information
one. I
what you
hadn't
will.
heard the Costa Rica one. That's cool.
Do I have anything else? I don't think I do.
I think that's it.
I think I've run out of news, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Just
thank
don't
you.
get scooped on your own scoop again.
Yeah, I need to. Sharing is caring, which was an attitude that did not serve me well with my hacker. Thank you to Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura Motorex, and Fox Racing for all of their support of this podcast, the Vital MX post-race show. That is edition 13 of the year. We're still fairly young in this season, in fact, when you think that there's 31 races now. But of course, Monster Energy AMA Supercross is storming towards a conclusion. Thank you everyone for listening. We will be back in 7 days' time to recap East Rutherford.